Did you know that cosmogony is a term used to describe the creation of the cosmos? It is also considered a branch of science that specifies the origins of the solar system and the universe as a whole. It is commonly confused for cosmology, which is the study of the universe from the beginning to the end, with everything in it and around it. Basically, cosmogony is origins and cosmology is the universe as a whole from start to finish. I will be talking about the Norse mythology version today, the beginning of the cosmos. Hello everyone, I'm Story, and this is a channel where I, Story, play vanilla Minecraft and talk about different myths, histories, or anything I find just remotely interesting. I love researching different topics on a wide variety of things. The name Story comes from the combination of the word serenity and story, which is quite obvious. This is because I wanted the main idea of this channel to be kind of like chill vibes and just chatting. With introductions out of the way, let's begin with today's tale. Origins. Things tend to exist. That is definitely what I wrote. But it is true, things do exist. And when things exist, they have a beginning, a foundation, a starting seed. The myth was said to have originated from ancient Germanic people, who migrated from Scandinavia. It is actually unknown if the term used for these people were Germanic, since they did not write about themselves. Instead, the text regarding the Germanic people was written by Romans. A large misconception is that they all spoke the same and were in a large unified group. The Germanic people actually have lots of different individual local tribes. They all spoke similar dialects, but also had different cultures according to their tribe. Germanic was essentially a broad term used for those who spoke multiple different languages in the north of Europe back then. Back to the topic at hand. For the founding of the Norse myth, there was only a minuscule amount of sources. Most of it comes from the medieval period, but in the end, there is no definite original source. These stories are normally passed by word of mouth, and the stories from multiple generations, so basically the original origins of the myth is lost to time. Alright, time for literal nothing, aka Ginnungagap. An empty void, dark and inky nothingness. That was Ginnungagap. It was what existed before the sun, the moon, the sky, and the stars. It was what was there before you or me, the plants or animals. Just an empty, dark void. Let me recite to you this poem which depicted Ginnungagap. That was the age when nothing was. There was no sand, nor sea, nor cruel waves. No earth, nor sky, nor grass there, only Ginnungagap. Basically, Ginnungagap was what existed before the cosmos. But then two other places felt left out and wanted to join the party. Muspelheim, or known as the world of Muspel, is one of the 9 worlds, and the home of fire. Niflheim, the world of fog, was one of the 9 worlds as well, and the home of ice. In the vast nothingness of Ginnungagap, they both crept from opposing sides, slowly making their way to the center. As the burning flames of Muspelheim met the hardened ice of Niflheim, it did what fire and ice tend to do. A form emerged from the water droplets, a being named Ymir, or also known as the Screamer, the first life form ever created. Remember what we said earlier about everything having a starting point and all that? That was basically Ymir. Basically, when he would sleep, he would sweat. With that sweat, he would create more and more giants. In my brain, I thought of it as like a weird sweatosis thing, but that's just my brain, and also I'm very unaware of what mitosis actually is. The flames kept growing and growing, like a tidal wave of heat that would constantly crash against the shores of the ice, until something else was freed. As the ice melted away, a cow emerged. Surprisingly, this cow was a vital part of the creation of the universe. Not sure why a cow was there in a chunk of ice, but boy golly aren't we lucky there was. The cow was the goat. Please laugh. The cow was Autumbla, or abundance of humming. You see, the name is actually a mixture of the Old Norse word ar, which was translated means riches. The other word is umla, which once again is roughly translated to hornless. Squish those words together and you create the name Autumbla, or hornless cow rich in milk. There are other terms for the name as well, such as humble cow or destroyer of the desert. Once again, 2 very different vibes in the naming scheme. Don't know why. Ymir would drink the milk Autumbla produced to sustain himself, while Autumbla would constantly lick the salty ice to sustain herself. Now, why do we care about this cow? Well, she kind of caused a domino effect. As a Toonblow licked through the salty ice, she uncovered a figure. It was Biri, or progenitor. Biri was the first of the Aesir tribe. The Aesir tribe is considered one of the two main tribes, the second being Vanir. They are located on the top branches of Yggdrasil, the Tree of Life. Now this is where things get confusing. In mythology, family trees are a bit much to untangle, so stick with me here. On the top we have Ymir, aka Screamer. He was the first and he's still creating sweat giants while all this is happening, so keep note of that. One of the giants Ymir created was Bullthorn, who then has a daughter named Bestla, while Biri goes on to have a son named Bor via parthenogenesis. Sure, that sounds right. Bor then marries Bestla. Bor and Bestla then have 3 sons, Odin, Vili, and Vi. Now remember how I said Ymir was still creating giants? There are kind of a lot at this point, and the gods are kind of like, oh no, we're getting nervous. Before we go any further, I want to just pause and take a moment to talk about Ymir's name, the Screamer. Ymir did not speak, his voice was just rough, messy screams, much like how his name implies. That's around a story. Why does this matter? You may be asking yourself, and to that I respond with, because everything has a beginning. A voice is a powerful thing to have, but where did it come from? Ymir would scream continuously. The god heard these wails, unrefined and furious. They took the screams and contorted them into sentences and words. My friend commented the gods saw that and thought they could do better, and then they did. Alright, we can continue with the next part. I want to bring up Ymir's name before I continue because this section is adequately named. Ymir's death. Spoiler alert. He dies. As I said earlier, with the sweat Ymir produces creating more and more giants, the gods were getting concerned that there would be a bit too many giants, so Odin and his siblings sought out and successfully killed Ymir. The majority of the frost giants were also eradicated except for Berglamir and his wife. They escaped by hiding in a hollowed out tree trunk. The tree trunk was in the shape of a boat, and once they were safe, they continued their line of frost giants. Ymir, the first of the giants to be slain, but what was to become of his body? Well, technically, everything. They went on to use Ymir's body to construct the universe. They used his blood to make oceans. The soil we stepped on was his skin and muscles. His bones, jagged and broken, were repurposed as the tallest mountains. Jaw and teeth were used to make rocks and pebbles, and his hair turned into our plants, while his brain were our clouds. Lastly, his skull was used to create the sky, being held up by the 4 dwarves, Ostri, Vestri, Nordri, and Sudri, across the 4 corners. In order, they were east, west, north, and south. The creation of the first humans is another part of this tale, kind of like The Sims. The creators of the first humans were Odin and 2 other gods. Who these 2 gods are largely debated. Some thought it was Odin's brothers, Vili and Vi, while the other sources believe they were the figures of Heinr and Loder. For this, I'm just going to say they were Odin's siblings, just to keep it concise. Anyways, Odin and his brothers were talking along the seashore, and they found 2 pieces of driftwood. One was wood of an ash tree, and the other was wood from an elm tree. They were shaped like a man and a woman. Odin blew onto them the breath of life, while the other 2 gave them the gift of thought and the ability to move. From the driftwood laying on the shore came 2 people, Ask and Embla. Their home was Midgard, a place created by using Ymir's eyebrows. They made Midgard a safe place to live out their lives away and safe from the giants. There was a man from Midgard named Mundilfari. He has a son named Mani and a daughter named Sol. His name roughly translates to being the one moving according to particular times. He thoroughly believed his children were the most beautiful people in the world, and as gods would be, they were displeased with this notion, so they took his children into the sky. Now, there's so much to be said about what happened at this point, but to keep it concise and short and sweet, Sol and Mani were given the sun and moon. Sol was given a chariot which pulled the sun. She carries the shield Svalin. It's capable of shielding the earth from the sun's harm. Her horses were named Arvakr, which means early wake, and Alsvi, which means very quick. Mani, on the other hand, only had 1 horse, and he also took a play from the God's Handbook. he stole 2 children from Midgard as well, to help him pull the chariot. The names of the kids were Bill and Yuki. While they rode across the night sky, they were constantly pursued by 2 wolves, Skoll, which means treachery, and Hati, which means hate. The wolves would take a bite out of the moon, but the moon would always regenerate. This wasn't until Ragnarok. When Ragnarok happens, the wolves will consume both the sun and the moon. And with that, our tale is finished. Links to my sources will be in the description below, and let me know in the comments what tales you would like to hear in the future. Thanks to my friends for helping me out as always, and go support a local library.